Anyway, I'm right back. Like I said, I just gotta get a sip. Just gonna have a quick sip of coffee. I got pop there that I might turn on later on. I'm not sure. Now, anyway, back back to what I was saying. I can remember when I was like 13 or 14. Um, and even 15, 16, 17, 18, even in my early 20s. Like the cemetery in the town I'm from is called Howley, Newfoundland. Howley's the town, Newfoundland's the province, and it's in Canada. Now, in the town now, there might be 80 people soaking wet, the most. When I was growing up there was a couple hundred, like 200, something like that. And when I was 13, after my older brother Bill, my oldest brother actually, my oldest brother Bill got killed in a car accident. And after he died, I started to go into the cemetery by myself in the nighttime, after dark, whether it be 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. 1 o'clock at night sometimes, even though I was only like 13, 14. I was 13 at the time. I used to go into the cemetery on my own. And I can remember one night, when I came home, the next morning, I used to go in, sit down alongside Bill's grave and my cousin's grave, and I used to talk to him like I'm talking right now. You know, I used to talk to him just like I'm talking to him right now. And I can remember when I came home one evening, one morning, I got up and that, and mom and dad were up. Dad was gone to work, and she had a house full of kids trying to raise. She done a good job on us. She done the best she could, and I love her for that, and I always will. And same as dad, he done his best. And he passed in 2003. And then my oldest sister passed in 2005. She passed up here in Ontario, in Toronto. So anyway, what I was gonna say was, I used to go in there, and I used to feel presence in there. Now, at that time, I was like, I knew what I felt. Even though I was only a kid, I knew what I felt. And I used to I went home, like I said, the next day around lunchtime or something. It was like midday. Someone came to the house and mentioned something to mom, right? Because a small community, wank, 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 wank. All they do is talk shit. Talk about each other. That's all they do is backbite. They talk about each other because they're that bored they have nothing else to do, right? So mom asked me, I sat down, have dinner and that, or lunch. And mom asked me, she said to me, excuse me, she said, what were you doing in the cemetery? She said, 12:30 last night. And I'm only 13 years old, right? I said, what do you mean, what am I doing in the cemetery at 12:30 at night? I said, same thing I do when I go in there every night. I said, I go in, sit down alongside Bill was my brother's name, right? Who was killed. I said, I go in and sit down alongside my brother. I go in and sit down alongside Bill's grave, between Bill's grave and my cousin's grave, and I talk to him. Just like I'm talking to you now, like normally. And mom, she said, okay, and she said, okay. And dad was working in Howell at the time, and I can remember dad coming home, right? Because dad used to say it was all, all that, and dad said, I said, mom, I was saying to you every night. And then mom was like, I can't remember how old she was at the time. Right? She's 85 now, and I'm 47. And she was like, I don't know how old she was, to be honest with you. I was 13 at the time, 13 and a half, maybe. And she said to me, what are you, some kind of, she didn't swear, right? She said, what are you, some kind of fucking spook or what? And I busted out laughing, right? I said, why? And she said, oh, what are you doing? And then Dad heard what she was talking about, right? So Dad said, what were you doing in the cemetery? He said, what the fuck are you doing in, and Dad, of course, used to swear a lot. He said, what the fuck were you doing in the cemetery? He said, 12:30 last night. And I told him exactly the same thing I told Mom. And he said, yep, you're just like your grandmother. I said, what? He said, you're just like your grandmother. I said, what do you mean I'm just like my grandmother? Which grandmother? And he said, my grandmother. You're just like her. Your great grandmother. I said, what do you mean I'm just like her? He said, you'll see as you get older. He said, you're just like her. He said, Grandmother Eaton was her name. And I was talking to Mom last week. I was talking to her last week about it. And I said to her, what was Grandmother Eaton like? And Mom started telling me. I was talking to her on the phone for like an hour, over an hour. And Mom started telling me. And she said, you know what? Mom said to me last week, she said, you know what? She said, for some reason, I don't know what it is. She said, you're just like Grandmother Eden. In a lot of ways. Like, in a lot of ways when it comes to, like, things like going to the cemetery after dark. Things like that. The paranormal, I loved. I've always loved. Always will love it. You know, no matter what happens, I always will love it, man. Okay, anyway, I'll do another video in a few minutes. Just, I like doing, once I start, I like doing like 3 or 4 a day if I can. I do fucking 50 if I had it my way. The only thing is it takes so long to upload the fuckers to YouTube. Then I gotta upload the fuckers to Facebook, right? And then later on, I'm gonna have a big load of fucking videos that I'm gonna have to upload to my ghost hunting group website, which, so be it. Anyway, with that, I'll let you go, and I'll talk to you very shortly. Ave Satanis.